The Friday Night Takeover.
In 3, 2, 1.
Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
All right, come on back into the Oval Office, Gulf Coast and America. Welcome back, and so glad that you're with us today. Listen, we've got a great show for you. Let me remind you, tomorrow afternoon, you can go to carlgallups.com, carlgallups.com. There's tons of stuff there to keep you busy for hours. I have people tell me all the time, say, I went to your website, and it's so kind of clean and neat, and it doesn't look, like there's a bunch of clutter. And then they start clicking on the links and the videos and the playlist and the articles, and they say, oh my gosh, I thought I would go there for 10 or 15 minutes. I was there for hours. I had one guy tell me that he was sleepy at work the whole next day because he had been up almost all night for hours and hours on it. But anyway, it's that kind of a site. Go to it, carlgallups.com. But it's easy to navigate. And when you go to carlgallups.com, you'll see the link right there in front of your face. You can't miss it. Podcast, Freedom Friday Podcast. So tomorrow you can click that and you can download this show. All right. But in the meantime, I'm going to bring on Mike Shoesmith. He is the executive editor of the PNN News and Ministry Network. Oh, man. Mike, you and I kind of jumbled that thing together, I guess 7 or 8 years ago, back when, social media was really kind of getting hot. And you came up with the idea. I mean, I had a little YouTube channel going called ppsimmons, and there was a guy that was working with me that wanted to kind of remain anonymous. And so we came up with that moniker. But then you and I got hooked up, and it was your idea. Let's make this into a network. Let's just use all the social media we can get that's popular and worthwhile and link it all together. So now, I don't know, there are 8 or 10 Facebook sites, a syndicated blog site now, a Twitter feed, 2 or 3 websites connected to this. I mean, this PNN network and this radio program's connected to it. The podcasts are all connected to it. The YouTube channel, which is now this 70 million views and 60,000 subscribers. I mean, this network reaches, I don't know, 1 million a week at least. And I mean, we were thinking we'd be glad to get a few hundred hits on a YouTube video.
Right. Well, now we have studios not only in Florida, but in Canada, in Israel, in China. We are literally a global network.
I know.
So, we give all the glory to God.
Yes.
But clearly, the Lord's assignment has been on the PNN network.
Yes, and I'm telling you. And, of course, I just do some contributions to it. You run the thing, and you've got people. You've got a bevy of people that work with you and for you and help you. And I mean, it's amazing. And I praise God for it. It's been astounding to watch that thing come together and just explode. And by the way, it was your idea, so I can say this. What a brilliant idea. I mean, I would have never thought of that, about, having a social media network rather than like a singular web page, but a network that just kind of throws the net out and reaches people all over the world by the millions. So if people don't like Facebook, that's okay. There's Blogspot, there's Twitter, there's radio, there's YouTube. If somebody says, well, I'm not on YouTube, that's okay. We've got Facebook and Twitter and Blogspots and radio. It's amazing. But anyway, listen, let's just dive right into some stuff. You and I were talking off air. You seem to think that Ben Carson may have redeemed himself here recently. Tell us what you think about that. I thought that was very interesting. In fact, I had some of the same kind of feeling, but you share with our folks.
Well, you remember a couple of weeks ago we talked about how perhaps Donald Trump should consider firing Ben Carson, because Ben Carson said in an interview that when he was asked about Donald Trump's involvement with the whole birther movement, quote unquote, Ben Carson said that Donald Trump should apologize for his involvement in that. And you and I got on the air almost immediately and said, wait a minute, he should apologize for it.
Right.
I mean, first of all, he didn't start it.
Right.
It's like the old saying, I didn't start this, but I'll be happy to finish it.
Exactly.
So basically, we've documented how Hillary and Chris Matthews and all these people, it was Hillary's team, including her media team, hello MSNBC and CNN, and et cetera. Her media team and her spokesman were out there, and really her underground her underground cronies were all out there trying to promote this narrative that Obama wasn't born in America, that he's a Muslim sympathizer, perhaps even a Muslim himself, throwing these pictures out there of Obama in Muslim garb. And so Donald Trump steps up, Sheriff Arpaio. His constituents came to his office and said, hey, look, you've got to deal with this. And so Arpaio puts together this posse led by Mike Zullo, and to put this to bed, essentially, let's put I'm getting inundated with phone calls, Sheriff Arpaio said. I'm being inundated with phone calls. Let's just put this thing to bed once and for all. Well, it turns out that the Arpaio investigation team, the cold case posse, they discover, wait a minute, this whole thing is a fraud. We have evidence. In fact, Arpaio now has a warehouse full of evidence suggesting that this whole birth certificate thing was is a fraudulent document. Well, how do they know that? Who was able to get the document posted to the White House website? Well, none other than Donald Trump. So why should Donald Trump apologize for any of this? He's the one who got Obama to post this document to the website. And we may, if Donald Trump becomes the president, we have not heard the end of this. I don't think we've heard the end of it anyway. But so Ben Carson suggests that Donald Trump should apologize for his involvement in this. So you and I get on the radio and say, wait a minute, maybe Ben Carson, even as brilliant a surgeon as he is, maybe he should not be in politics whatsoever, and maybe Donald Trump should fire him. Well, this week, Ben Carson may have brought a little bit of redemption upon himself, because he got on the news wires and the interview circuit, and he said that, look, this is all following this whole video of Donald Trump embarrassing himself with those comments about women and so on and so forth. We're not going to get into all that, right?
Right.
But Carson says that in the time that he has known Donald Trump has drawn closer and closer to the Lord during this time. Mm-hmm. It's been a humbling experience for him, and he has drawn closer. Remember, this video was recorded back 11 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, honestly, if you knew me 11 years ago, which you did not, if you knew me 11 years ago, you may not have wanted much to do with me either. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I was pretty rough around the edges myself, because I was saved back in '97, which isn't quite 20 years ago. You understand? And I was an atheist until that time. Right. Very, very rough. Not the kind of man you would find holy and godly and so on. I was the exact opposite of that, okay? So in the last 20 years, things have happened to me. In the last 11 years, a lot has happened to me. A lot of maturity, a lot of growing closer to the Lord. So Ben Carson suggests that Donald Trump has grown closer to the Lord. And so that leads me to believe that Ben Carson, there may be some redemption going on in my heart toward him. I may be saying, okay, maybe Ben Carson is a good, role model for Donald Trump, a good person to have by his side. So maybe I'm willing to accept that I may be rescinding my call for Donald Trump to fire him. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
No, I think you're right. And listen, you said a moment ago, and I was just kind of agreeing with you going along. You said we're not going to talk about the Donald Trump and his statements about the women and stuff, right? And right. I just said right. I was just answering, but no, we can talk about it. I mean, listen, I think you're right on Ben Carson. I think that perhaps he has redeemed himself in this, and we could talk for hours about this whole birther thing, and we've done it over and over. And in fact, I was talking with Mike Zullo just the other day, and there's more stuff coming down the pike. I'm going to have him back on the show in coming up weeks, but Trump is not wrong about the birth certificate thing. He is not wrong. He will be vindicated. Sure. I can assure you of that. But that's going to be, not right now. It'll be after the election. But I'm convinced, though, Mike, that this is one of the things that the left, that Obama and Hillary, they're terrified of him, not only because he will set back their globalist agenda by 50 years, but look, he said it. He said it at the last debate when he said, if I'm in office, I will prosecute Hillary Clinton. She belongs in prison. See, she knows that. And I think Barack Obama knows it because, as you so brilliantly reminded us, Donald Trump is the one who forced Obama to put a birth certificate on the government website, which we now know is a fraudulent fabrication, which is a crime. And Obama has pointed to that and said, that is my birth certificate. So So he and the people around him apparently would be culpable in this. So that's going to come out. But you're right about Trump and his past. I mean, nobody would like to hear a tape of something that we said in private, a bunch of guys together or a bunch of women. Listen, I've been assured by women in my life that women talk just as ugly or worse than guys do sometimes when they're together, right?
Oh boy. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've been in settings where, of course, that is true.
Wait a minute. What are you smiling about, Mallory? I think we just got affirmed on that.
I don't those places anymore here, but I don't know. I surround myself with godly women. I choose to do that, but so I can't speak to that situation. Right.
Listen, of course, godly women and godly men do not engage in that, at least on a regular basis. But again, this was 11 years ago, and Trump himself has said, I mean, that he's just recently come to the realization of a real relationship with the Lord. And we've had top evangelical leaders that have come out in the last 6 or 7, 8 months in the last year that have said that they've spent hours with Donald Trump and listened to him, asking the Lord to save him and repenting and, all of these different things. Now, whether that's true or not, we will see. But the bottom line is Hillary and Bill Clinton, that glass house they're living in, they better quit throwing those stones.
Right. Well, as happy as we are that Ben Carson is not the nominee, I think that Ben Carson is not the kind of guy who would cover for a godless heathen running for president. I don't think Ben Carson I don't think he needs that in his life.
Right.
I don't think he would fall on this sword. This sword would hurt him too. Would be too. He'd be wielding it by the blade.
Yes.
If he was to support a man who was clearly in this for himself and just pulling the wool over the Americans' eyes as far as his faith. I think Ben Carson is close to Donald Trump right now. He's an advisor, and I think that we should trust him when it comes to this kind of judgment on Ben Carson. I don't think Ben Carson would throw himself on this sword. If it wasn't true, I don't think Ben Carson would say it.
And I don't think Mike Pence would throw himself on that sword either.
Exactly. Thank you.
So these guys know Donald Trump very personally, and I use the word intimately, of course, in the personal way. And we don't. And so, we've got to go with that. I mean, and the bottom line, Mike, as you and I know, and we can talk about this after the break. I've been talking about it a lot. Just recently, there was a WND article. MSNBC called me today, wanted me to do an interview about this topic. But the bottom line is, I am still screaming at America, please, on November, vote for Donald Trump. Not that I think he's the savior of the world, but the alternative is Hillary Clinton, and one of those two people are going to be in the White House beginning November the 9th when the president-elect is announced to the nation.
Right. No, I don't know. Did you catch the debate on Sunday night, by the way?
No. I was preaching. No, I was preaching a conference. But
that's right too. Yeah, that's right too. I remember you saying that to me. I'm sorry you missed it because it was very good. There was one thing. I know we got to go to a break. I just want to get this in here real quick. There was one really open door for Donald Trump to really make an impact. I think that the audience would have blown the roof off of that place if he would have made this one particular statement. A question came in, I think it was a Facebook question or something, where somebody asked, will you be a president not just to one group of people, but to all Americans? Will you be a president for all Americans? Donald Trump is standing rather, in front of Anderson Cooper. Okay, so if I was Donald Trump's advisor, I would have said to him, perhaps in an earpiece or something, I don't know if we're wearing earpieces, but I would have said to him, the perfect opportunity came up, we could have said, look, he mentioned that he loves the Hispanics and the blacks, and he talks about the inner cities where the blacks are hurting. And in addition to that, I would have looked at Anderson Cooper and said, Anderson, this is true. You and I have at least two things in common. One is we both come from wealthy families. Anderson Cooper is the son of Gloria Vanderbilt, who's a oil baroness, right? And Donald Trump comes from a rich, real estate mogul. His father lent him millions to start his own business, et cetera, et cetera. He said, look, you and I have those two things in common, but also you and I are both good friends with Howard Stern, because Anderson Cooper is a good friend with Howard Stern. Donald Trump could have said, look, you've been on Howard Stern's show many times. You have gone along with the crudeness and the vulgarity of Howard Stern. You've talked about the sex life of your mother on Howard Stern's show. Okay, and you and I have that in common. And I just hope, I just hope, Mr. Cooper, that someday Howard Stern will make a conscious decision to follow Jesus Christ as I have done.
That's a point well made, Mike. We've got to go to the break. The music's been playing. Point well made. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break, folks. Don't go anywhere. Freedom Friday. Carl Gallups. We'll be right back.
Are you ready for this?
For mature audiences only.
And now, the Commander-in-Chief is back. Freedom Friday with